Welcome back. Thanks again for being with us. It's hard to believe we're already at week 5 and personality type 4. We're in our series Mirrors. What reflection do I see? And as we've looked at the life of Jesus, his interaction with these personality types, I hope that you're reading or have read The Road Back to You. Maybe you've even taken a personality test or taken a personality test and discovered your unique personality type. Now we're learning how to integrate those types and love everyone. Remember, loving God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, loving our neighbor are critical, but they all come from loving God, loving others like you love yourself. And so my desire is that at the end of this series, that triad, that healthy triad of loving God, loving others, and loving yourself is as healthy as it's ever been in your life. This week we talk about an extraordinary person. Now, every single personality type is, but this is the individualist. The 4 on the Enneagram, sometimes referred to as the romantic, as you'll hear in Pastor Paul's teaching. The individualist is truly that. I mean, they walk at the beat of a different drum. They are unique in every way. And, you know, I've tried to stay clear of too many personality types in my family. I don't want to categorize anybody. That's up to them to share. But I do have a 4 in my family. And my youngest son is, he's really the epitome of a 4. And he's using his unique individuality. But one of my favorite stories that he had happen, or at least was part of his practice in his life, was when he got into high school. He finally started driving, and one of his favorite things to do was to go to the secondhand thrift stores and buy clothes. Now, it wasn't because we couldn't afford to buy him clothes. It was because he couldn't find yellow mustard pants and a green sport coat anywhere. He had to go to the thrift store to buy it, and he dressed so amazing. I remember I couldn't wait to see his ensemble for the day. I mean, he just beats at his own drum. And that's a great character quality. And they are individuals. That's why I mentioned last week that many of the celebrities and actors are 3s because they're performance, but the other artistic side, the people behind the cameras, many of those in front of the cameras are also 4s because they have this notion that they are going to change the world. There was a person in the stories of Jesus, and Jesus talks about him. He didn't necessarily encounter him in the Gospels, but it was King David. And he refers back to a situation that happened in David's life. And that opened up a corridor for me to talk about David. Many people have labeled King David as an 8 or, as a 3, but I really think King David was a 4. If you read through the Psalms, you see a guy that dealt with being melancholy, who was very emotional, who was very authentic, very real. King David, in my opinion, was a 4. And he showed all of those virtues and all of those amazing qualities. And what I love about that is when you are a healthy 4, you are the person that truly does change the world. Now, they set goals. They're romantics. Their notions are, I'm gonna be famous. I'm going to do something that sets the world on fire. And you don't ever want to squelch that. So some of the ways that we love a 4 in our life is, number 1, when they're melancholy, don't try and talk them out of it. They just want you to hear them. They just want you to pray for them. They just want you to love them. Don't try and talk them out of that. Another area is be real with a 4, because a 4 can sniff out phoniness like no one else. So you better be transparent and you better be genuine. Also, understand the individualistic qualities of a 4. Allow them to be who they are. Do not change them or try to change them or make them conform. To do so would depress them and discourage them. It was our desire, my wife and I, to make sure that all of our children knew that they were unique in God's sight and they could be exactly who God made them to be. And that was every number and every personality type, including the 4. So my friends, as you get going today in your study, I want to challenge you. Listen to what Pastor Paul has to say and Pastor Brittany, but more importantly, apply the principles of loving the individualist, the romantic. And if you've got a 4 in your group or in your family, you should be excited because though they're the least populated group of personality types according to studies, They are the most life-changing, life-giving group you'll ever run into. I love you guys, and we'll see you.
The Enneagram Type 4 is the romantic. Now, romantics, they are the most complex and unique of all the numbers. They love being unique. In fact, the classic story of the 4 is when they read the Enneagram books, they discover this whole system, they just say, no, it's not true. There's no one else like me in the world. And it's true that 4s are so unique. They're the artists, they're the painters, they're the musicians, they're the ones who share with us some of the most beautiful things of the world. The chefs who come up with new recipes. They appreciate and soak in life so much. Now, for a 4, one of the deepest battles is the battle of insecurity, the battle of feeling so alone and so lacking in the necessary elements of life that they never feel like they're going to be accepted, never feel like they're going to be able to be enough in the world. And so if you're a 4, you probably love the unique parts of you. You probably dress a little differently from the people around you. You hate cliche. You love art. You love beauty. You love things that remind you of the interesting, fascinating part of God. And that's what the 4s give us. The great gift that the 4s give us is the reminder that not everything has to be practical. Not everything has to be useful. Not everything has to be 1 + 2 = 3. And so today, as we encounter a 4 in the Bible, we see this battle. The battle of being too much, too extravagant, too unique, too complex, too emotional, too intense. And if you're a 4, you've probably received this message a lot of times in your life that you're just too much. And because of it, you feel like you're not enough. You're not capable of engaging the world and being accepted. And so as we watch Jesus interact with a 4 today, I hope you find some freedom. So here's Jesus. He's sitting at a table. He's at a dinner at a respectable house. It's a dinner at the home of a man named Simon. Now Simon, he's a Pharisee, he's a religious leader, and it's the kind of party where to get on the guest list, you got to be respectable, honorable, dignified, In fact, probably the sketchiest people at the place are Jesus and his disciples. And everything's going fine at the dinner. They're bantering back and forth with Jesus, asking him questions about his interpretations of the law and the kind of thing that always happened to Jesus. And as they're sitting there talking, all of a sudden the party, it gets invaded by this woman. And she's a woman with a reputation. Maybe you've heard the story, you know about her. And so as soon as she walks in the room, the fact that she's even there in the house in the first place is this incredible act of courage on her part. And so as she's walking to the house, I just imagine that she's staring at the ground in front of Jesus' feet because she knows that if she makes eye contact with anyone else in the room, she's just going to run away in fear because she knows what they're saying, she knows what they're thinking, she knows who she is, she knows who they are. All of it is clear and it's out in the open, even though the room is dead silent. She knows. And so she walks in that silence across the floor. I imagine it's almost like you can hear each footstep, and she barely makes it there to Jesus' feet. And then she touches him. And, in that world, it was one thing for a woman to even be in the room. That was offensive enough. But to approach not only a man, but a rabbi, and then to touch him, this was just completely socially out of bounds. And so there she is, she's at the feet of Jesus, and the whispers start, right? They start talking about her. Does he know who this woman is? He says he's a prophet. Doesn't he know her reputation? Doesn't he know that she's stained, that she's broken, that she's dirty? Doesn't he know where she's been? So she's there, and she's on her knees at the feet of Jesus, and she's just weeping. And she uses her tears to to wash his feet in this incredible act of worship and humility, this recognition that he's her Messiah, that he's her Savior, he's the one who's given her hope, and she washes his feet with her tears, and then she begins to dry them with her hair, and then she pulls out this box of perfume. It's unbelievably expensive perfume. I mean, they've calculated it's probably worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 or $30,000, this perfume, these spices, and she begins to anoint his head, and the aroma of this perfume, it just fills the room, and everybody there knows that she's calling him her king when she does this, but it's just too much. They're offended, they're scandalized by this woman who has so brazenly just poured herself out to Jesus. You know, it's pretty characteristic of Jesus that he lets this all play out. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't interrupt. He just lets them talk. And he lets her wash his feet, and he lets her anoint his head with these oils and spices. And then when all is said and done and the dust is finally settled and it's almost getting awkward because they're wondering, what's he going to do? What's he going to say? Is he going to throw her out? Is he going to curse her? And they've started going beyond just the offense of the fact that she's a woman with a sketchy reputation who's touched him, and now they're saying, couldn't something more practical have been done? And you know, that's really the battle of the four, isn't it? I mean, if this is you, if you're a romantic, you probably have been told this over and over and over again in your life. Couldn't you take your brilliance? I mean, you're so smart. Couldn't you take this artistic talent? Couldn't you take your creativity, and couldn't you just for once do something useful with it? And Jesus, he looks around the room and he sees all those practical faces. Judas in particular, who has said, couldn't we have fed the poor with the money we could have made by selling this perfume? And Jesus makes a statement. He says, in all the world, for all time, whenever anyone tells the story of the gospel, whenever anyone tells the story of the Messiah, the King of Kings, God himself coming and invading humanity, the story that's going to be right there with it is the story of this extravagant act of love. See, the romantics, they give us beauty. They give us the impractical, creative heart of God. And so maybe if you're a four today, if you're wrestling with the fact that you just feel like it's too much and you've been told over and over and over again that it's too much, know that you can follow the lead of the woman who scandalized all of the practical people in her world. And you can pour out every bit of worship, every bit of love, every bit of affection on Jesus, and know that he not only honors you, but he receives it as part of his heart revealed to the world. So if you're a four, if you're a romantic, you know the battle to turn inward, to hide yourself away from the world, to say they just don't understand and they're never going to. And you know, sometimes you probably feel like an alien, you feel like a victim. But the battle of the romantic is the battle of generosity. It's the battle of taking that brilliance that God has put in your heart and not keeping it to yourself. But to follow the lead of that courageous woman who chose not to filter herself in front of her Savior, but to pour out who you are, not for the good of yourself, but for the good of others, for the good of the world.
This week, we're talking about the romantics. If you have these personality types in your life, you know that they're complex, sensitive, and emotional people who love to find beauty and artistry everywhere they look. They're the most unique personality type, and they love that about themselves. They show us the beauty, artistry, and creativity of God and remind us that it's the romantic heart of God that decided sunsets should be beautiful, people should fall in love, strawberries and peaches should taste good, and most of the Bible should be one giant, complicated, and beautiful story. Romantics also struggle deeply with insecurity, the tendency to become manipulative, and a false sense that they're a victim to their circumstances. They're comfortable with more difficult emotions, but sometimes their sadness overwhelms them, and they lose the ability to have fun and laugh. More than most other types, romantics battle the temptation to turn inward. And when they do, they become so focused on their own complex, creative, emotional world that they're unable to connect with others. The habit we're going to practice this week is the habit of generosity. When romantics decide to be generous, they give the same way they do with everything in their lives, with extravagance, flair, and creativity. And because they're so introspective, it's important for romantics to remember that their creativity and sensitivity are meant to be a gift to the world, not their internal world no one else sees. The real beauty of what Mary did for Jesus in the story we heard today was the fact that it came from a heart of generosity. The deepest fear of the romantic is that they are somehow not enough, that there's something missing from inside them. But giving away their time, their energy, their creativity, their resources, and their love frees romantics from this fear, because it reminds them that they really do have enough, and that their uniqueness, their gifts to the world, really are valuable to others. This week, practice generosity, not just with your money, but with your time, energy, and abilities. Find ways to improve the lives of others by giving away what you have, and use it as a reminder to yourself that, as Jesus said, when we give our lives away, that's when we really find them. I hope you have a great time in group today. See you next week.